Alright, support video about finding domain and range of a graph. First, what a domain is, it's a set of input values. What that really means is all the x's that can be used in this graph are in this function. Sometimes some numbers can be used, sometimes they can't be. So you have to be always aware of that. We're going to focus on what the graph looks like and how to find the domain from there. Your tip is to read the graph from left to right once you have the graph. Your range, according to the domain, is the set of output values, your y's. So your domain is your x's and your range are your y's. So you look at your x-axis and your y-axis. This tip to find your range is read your graph from the bottom and you go to the top. So always start with your negative values first and go towards the positive. Your parentheses are used for values not included in the set or are asymptotes, which, same thing. Brackets are used for values that are included in the set. Here are 4 examples. There's definitely an infinite amount of examples, but these 4 hopefully will get us started if we're still struggling with this. So here are 4 different graphs that we can find the domain and range of. The first graph, your domain, if you read it from left to right, begins with -3. So if you look closely, left to right, this way, there's your first point right there, and that's at -3. And you read it from left to right, so this graph definitely ends somewhere, right? So that ends at +1. And since -3 is a closed circle, it's a bracket. On 1, that is an open circle. That is not included. The line ends actually like right before it hits 1, like 0.99999 infinitely. But it never actually lands on 1. That's an open circle on 1, so it's not included, therefore the parentheses. Let's move on to range. Your range, go from the bottom towards the top. First point we see is right there. Closed circle, so a bracket. And it starts at -2 and goes all the way up to 4. And again, 4 has an open circle on it. So we have parentheses. So that's the domain and range of that first graph. The second graph, well, we still read it from left to right. Don't worry about this part. We actually have to begin here. So that has an arrow, means it goes on forever, which means in this case it actually begins at -infinity. It never lands on -infinity, it just keeps headed out in that direction. So we use a parentheses because it never lands on it. It's not including infinity. It's like it's almost getting there, but not quite. And as you read it from left to right, well, it's got an arrow on the right-hand side. Means it's going towards +infinity. And again, we use the parentheses. The range, top to bottom. Bottom to top. Sorry. We start at -infinity at the bottom, and we go up to +infinity. Because the line is going on forever because of the arrows on the ends. For our third graph, a parabola, we look at our domain, arrows on both sides, starting over here, goes on forever, over here goes on forever, thus begins at -infinity and ends at positive, not ends, but it keeps going towards +infinity. Your range, going bottom to top, it definitely has a beginning. It begins at -2, therefore we use the brackets, and it keeps going upward endlessly because of the arrows, so it's +infinity, again with parentheses. The last graph, a exponential graph, has a domain, has arrows on both ends, so it's -infinity to +infinity. Your range, again, we begin where? The bottom, and we go to the top. So at the bottom of this graph, you look around, oh look, the bottom starts here, it's got an arrow, so that means it actually keeps going there. So the range begins at -infinity, and as we go up, we see that it actually has a definite end, not end, but a place that it gets closer to, so it asymptotes. With 1, it curves and tries to get to 1, but it just gets closer but never touches. So we have a +1, but parentheses because it never should cross that as an exponential function. I hope this helps with our knowledge and understanding domain and range. But there'll be lots of different types, so we will still be studying this year into next year. Okay? Bye.